Welcome to Who Let the Dogs Out, the podcast designed to help you enjoy life with your best friend without all the frustrations. Join us each week as we do just that. I'm your host, Corey, and I'm joined by my co-host,
Sally.
And today we have got a dog talk for you. Dog talk is where me and Sally come on and we break down a topic related to dogs, dog training, dog ownership. And today we're talking about 8 different ways to get your puppy to stop puppy nipping. This was inspired by a recent client I signed up. She's got a beautiful puppy and her arms are just mauled. I mean, yeah, her arms are just so torn up all over. And so I went out there yesterday, helped them out quite a bit. And so my goal today is to pass off a lot of the same info I gave to them yesterday to you guys. So if you have a puppy or you know somebody with a puppy that's puppy nipping, you can send them this. So anyways, that's what today's episode is about. We have other formats we do on the show. We just did our first interview a couple episodes ago where I interviewed one of my favorite trainers who took me through a training system. So we'll have interviews on the show. We're going to have debates, live shows, different things like that. Our main other format, though, is Q&A, where you guys send in the questions and we give you the answers. And if they want to send in questions, how can they do that?
Send it to sally@wonderdogtraining.com or they can come to you.
Yep. Or you can send it to me at Corey from Wonderdog on Instagram. Or where else can they leave questions?
Wherever you see our podcast.
Yep. So in the comments. Yep. Comments, whatever platform you're on, Spotify, YouTube, Rumble, you can leave it there. So with that being said, those are the show formats, and that's what we're talking about today. So we have been trying to come up with some new segments to do on the show, and one of the things that we've done historically over a handful of the past episodes is jokes, and I gave Sally 2 jokes today to read.
Sally's got 3 jokes, actually.
Well, let's just start with one. Maybe we'll throw one in the middle of the show. And one at the end or something.
That would be good.
Keep the people hooked.
Keep them wanting, because you know
people
how
hooked.
they
love the jokes.
They love the jokes.
They love the jokes.
Okay, so here's joke number 1. What dog is always sad?
I don't know.
A melancholy.
Okay, that was stupid.
These are dad jokes,
That was
by the way.
No, that was good.
Please free to use
Dad
them.
dog jokes. That was good.
Dad dog jokes.
And then so funny enough, we actually got we've actually gotten a lot of praise about the podcast, whether it be like in-person meeting with people, our clients, people emailing us whenever we send out our weekly newsletters about the podcast and stuff. We've gotten a ton of really good feedback, but we did get some negative feedback recently. We got a 1-star review and somebody said, "I'm so glad I didn't pay for this." Now, my thought is that they were actually talking about Sally's jokes and they didn't pay. They didn't pay to come to the comedy show. We've also gotten a lot of compliments about the jokes too. Somebody quite literally has emailed and said, "Tell Sally to keep up the jokes." So,
Yay.
But this one person didn't like them so much, they were willing to leave a 1-star review and say, "So glad I didn't pay for this." I think it's because they wouldn't pay to hear you tell jokes for an hour. So,
Well, let me just say, that's your loss.
yep. And if you're listening, you know who you are, and you've hurt Sally's feelings.
Come back. I might grow on you.
Yeah, and if she does, change your review. Anyways, all right, enough of that. So, we talked about formats. I guess we'll just jump into the show. So, and feel free to jump in and ask questions on all these because I'm the one that has all the notes here. So we're going to talk about 8 different ways to get your puppy to stop puppy nipping today. That's like the big topic of this show, right? So people get new puppies. They're super cute. Like this dog is literally so cute. He's a Bernese Mountain Dog. He's like 14 weeks old, 15 weeks old, something like that. He's huge. He's cute. He's adorable. But he literally just mauls his owner and with love. Like he's not doing it to be mean or anything. Yeah, he's not aggressively biting. He's just biting them all the time.
But those little teeth are like needles.
Oh my God, they're crazy. They're so sharp. And so before I jump into some of the specifics about how to get your puppy to stop puppy nipping, I wanted to go over some just overarching principles and stuff like that about training and raising puppies and stuff that will pair into this. A lot of this advice that I'm going to give you today too can be applied to other bad puppy behaviors. So chewing stuff, potting on the floor, getting stuff they're not supposed to, running away with things. All these same things can be applied to a lot of other things that are happening with your puppy. Yeah. So principle number 1 is always reward the good. So what does that mean? So with puppies, I think you should use rewards with all dogs in training, but especially with puppies, they thrive off of positive reinforcement. Now, I do believe in correcting puppies in a way the puppy understands. So how I'd correct Mia, don't go back there. How I'd correct maybe a 6-month-old dog or a year-old dog is going to be different than how I would with a puppy. But I definitely believe in praising the positive and rewarding the positive. So what does that mean? Praise or rewarding your dog can come in a bunch of different categories, but I would say like the biggest ones is like praise, verbal, petting your dog, so physical praise, giving your dog treats, giving your dog kibble, things like that, right? We're making them, earn their food, so to speak. Those are like going to be some like your common manifestations of like how to reward your dog. The second one is correct your puppy. So that's the second principle here. Correct your puppy. And what does that mean? So like I said, the way that we would correct a dog that's like 6 months, a year, 2 years old, older, things like that is going to be different than how I would with a puppy, right? I have to use something like that the puppy understands and that's fair to the puppy as well, right? So like I'm not going to use like a remote collar on a puppy or anything like that, right? But I will talk to the dog in a language the dog understands, right? And so like how do you correct the puppy? Well, the big one, that's actually what we're going over this whole like podcast, but so I'll just leave it at that, and then we'll talk about like specific ways to correct your like puppy for puppy nipping and how that can be applied to other behaviors as well. But that's the second one. And then anytime, I guess point 2 on principle 2 would be to pair a word with the correction. Right. Mm-hmm. So like if I'm going to correct the puppy for something and I'm going to apply like a correction of some sort, I want to pair it with whatever stop word I want to use. Right. Yeah. So it could be no, stop, leave it, bad, whatever word we want to use. I want to pair that with the correction. So the word is paired with the negative that the dog understands. Right.
Yeah.
The next one, and this goes for puppies, dog ownership overall, but if your dog has excess energy, it's going to be used to do things that we don't like. We actually talked about that on the previous podcast, but it's going to be used to do stuff that you don't like. So that's going to be chewing your stuff up, tearing up the couch, digging in the yard, stealing food off the counter, stealing remotes, which we talked about on the last podcast.
Yeah, we did.
So we've got to get the dog's energy out. And puppies in particular, they go hard and they sleep hard, right? So let's use that like go crazy hard puppy energy and like move that into a productive activity where we use their brain so then they want to rest, right?
Yes.
But overall, a big principle here is like wear the dog out doing a positive activity rather than just letting them use all that energy and like go crazy, right? Because like the other day when I was selling this family training, the puppy was having like one of their like, witching hour moments, so to speak. And like, it's like running up, like quick bite, run away. And then, now it's like bouncing on both feet, like on its front feet, barking at us and stuff like that. Right. And so that's like a bunch of crazy energy, but okay. So if I just let the dog do that, yes, I'm going to keep getting the things that I don't want. So like, let's use that, move that to a productive thing. So like, let's break out and do like a quick little training session or something like that. Right. So that's a big principle. I guess point number 3 is wear your dog out. The next one is, I would say, when it comes to, I'm going to make this principle just called like be consistent across family members. So this would be number 4, I guess. Yeah. Be consistent across family members. Now, specific to puppy biting, this would be like, if let's say we've got a family, right? So it's a wife, husband, and 2 kids, right?
Yeah.
The wife and the kids don't want the dog to bite them, or maybe the one kid, wife and husband don't want the dog to bark, but then they've got like a 12-year-old son that likes to rough play with the dog or something like that, right?
Yeah.
If we're not consistent across like family members, that's going to be really tough for a puppy to understand, right? So like we can't be rough playing with the dog, like letting them bite on us with like one family member or at one time, and then like expect them to not do it whenever we don't want them to the next time. So like let's be consistent. Now that's how that relates to like puppy biting. Overall, it helps to just have consistent rules across the house too. So like if we're not going to let the dog on the couch, everybody shouldn't let the dog on the couch. If we're going to let the dog on the couch with a password or by picking the dog up, then let's make sure we do that every time. If we're going to let the dog on the couch all the time, let's stick with that. If we're going to make the dog do door manners, let's stick with that, right? Yeah. And be consistent across family members, right? That's very important. So be consistent. That's principle number 4. And then the last one overall is just like, and I've kind of already touched on this, but just like train your puppy, right? So like, and when I say train, I mean like set out small, quick, fun, to the point training sessions, 5-10 minutes here, 5-10 minutes there, and teach your puppy productive things, right? So like sit, lay down, come here, their name, go to bed, sit on the bed, stay on the bed, not for super long, right? We have to remember we've got a puppy in front of us, right?
Yeah.
We've got a puppy in front of us. And so we have to tailor that to the dog and the attention level of the dog and things like that. But do like little training sessions to like use that energy and like train your dog's brain and like use that energy in a productive manner, right?
Yeah.
So those are 5 big principles. So reward the good, correct the bad, wear your dog out, be consistent across family members, and then train the dog.
Yeah.
I guess before I move on to like the specifics, do you have anything? I just kind of rambled on those and just like went super fast. Do you have anything on any of this?
It's super clear. And I think you're right with the consistency through family as well. Because I know, like with puppies, they don't care whether a child's screaming with delight or fear. To them, it's excitement, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess so.
So keep that consistency.
Yeah.
So the dog is very sure of what's expected, boundaries, etc. So everybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
Get them all involved.
Yeah. Well, anyways, there you have it. So those are some overarching principles. Now let's dive into like the 8 specific ways that we can fix these. And so I've got 8 specific ways, and then I've got like some sub points under like different ones. So we'll jump into them. And I'm not necessarily saying this is like in a particular order or like my favorites are first or favorites last or anything. This is just like the stuff I came up with for this family yesterday and gave to this family. So I'm going to start with like, I guess maybe just like the main one that you'll read on the internet. So like if you type into Google, like how to get puppy to stop puppy biting or puppy nipping or whatever it is, the main one that you're going to read on like blogs and see in YouTube videos is like, oh, redirect the dog to a toy or a bone. That's the main one you're going to see. I don't think that's a bad option, but I do think it's typically given out a bit incorrectly, right? So like let's scenario, dog bites me and is puppy biting on me. I grab toy, give dog toy, right? Or I grab a bone, give the dog a bone, right?
Yeah.
Well, what did I just do? So the action, the thing is the dog biting me, so that's the behavior. And then the stimulus that I add in is a positive, right? So I give the dog a toy or a bone or a Kong with peanut butter in it or whatnot.
Yeah.
Well, what does that tell the dog? Okay, biting equals treats, positive. Toys, food, things like that, right? And so that is not good. And so once again, whenever we want to correct the bad and then reward the good, right? So like now we're going to jump into like the specific ways of like how to give a puppy a correction to communicate with them effectively. Hey, stop biting. But that's the big thing is like, don't just give the dog a toy or a bone or something like that for like right after they bite. You need to like insert a loud firm no could be a big correction too. Like we just talked on the last podcast about like how Sully stole the remote 3 times and on the 3rd time you finally like really yelled at him and you were like, you raised your tone enough to where he was like, oh wow, she means business, right?
Yeah.
And that worked. And so a correction could just be the word no and being firm with the dog and letting the dog know, hey, you mean business, right? But so I don't think that's a bad strategy. You just need to add in like a small negative or correction to tell the dog, hey, stop doing this behavior now. Instead of doing that, do this, right? And now we play tug, I give you the bone, things like that, right?
Yeah.
That's the main one that you're going to see on the internet is going to be it's going to be redirect the dog, which is not bad. It's just let's do it a little different than how it's commonly advised, right? So that is number 1. Number 2, another big one that you'll see on the internet quite a bit is people will say like yelp, scream, say ouch, things like that. And the idea here is that like from what I've read, at least whenever I've like read this the first time or whenever I've studied this or watched videos with people suggesting this, what is typically the thought process behind it is like if the puppy bites me and then like I screech or squeal or say ouch or whatever it is, and I'm like, it's going to like relate it in the dog's head back to like their brothers and sisters, like in the litter, like, yipping or something like that for like biting too hard and stuff like that. If the yip, the yelp, the scream, the ouch, whatever it is enough to get the dog to actually stop doing the thing, then that is therefore then a negative enough to get the dog to stop. So it's still the same principle. It's a negative, right? And so that's good. And then from there, we can then give the dog a positive, right? So we can pet the dog. We can, give the dog attention. We can praise the dog. We can give the dog a toy from there, right? However, in my experience, I've had a lot of clients that have hired me over the years that have said, oh yeah, we tried that. Like we read this thing, like just scream or say ouch or yip or yelp whenever he does this. And like, it doesn't work for them. So I personally haven't had a lot of clients that see success with this, but I imagine that if like you yelled really loud, like ouch really loud, or like with like a firm enough tone or something like that, your puppy might be like, oh crap, like what'd I just do? Why did that one thing I just did elicit that response from the human and kind of make them think twice a little bit, right? But it's going to have to be something to like snap the puppy out of it, right? Because like when puppies get locked in on like wanting to bite something or, puppy nip and whatnot, you got to snap their focus out of it, right? And so it can be something abrupt as that, right? So that would be point 2, I guess, like yip, yelp, say ouch, things like that. But make it loud enough and effective enough for your puppy to actually understand what you mean with that, right? That's
be
point
dramatic.
2. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. Anything on that one before I move over to the next one?
No, that's a good one.
All right. The next one that you'll see on the internet a lot, and this really goes for like all bad behaviors, like if you read blogs or watch YouTube videos or whatnot, a lot of like I guess you could say like non-balanced trainers are more like on the positive, like only spectrum or whatnot of training, which isn't necessarily bad. It's just different than what we do. A lot of times people will say like ignore the behavior, which I think can work with some stuff, right? So like whenever it comes to like puppies barking in the crate or whatnot, like if you put them in there and they're barking, I typically would be like, yeah, ignore that. Just let them whine it out. And then they'll realize like, okay, that's not going to get me out. And next time they go in, the likelihood of them being quieter sooner is going to go up, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or it'll be faster. However, when it comes to the dog puppy biting you, it's kind of tough to ignore. Like, you know, I've been training dogs for years. I've met thousands of dogs at this point. I've had dogs like puppy nip me. I've been bit by dogs, you know, like not in a puppy nipping way, a number of times. It's hard to ignore your puppy nipping you, right? Yeah. Especially when they're like bigger, they're stronger. They've got like those super sharp razor teeth, things like that. That's a tough thing to ignore. So if you are bold enough to ignore it and you can't ignore it for long enough, then more power to you. I'm not really there are certain behaviors, once again, like puppy barking in the crate, things like that. There are certain behaviors that I think are best to ignore and let them like go away on their own. However, I'm not really a huge big believer in ignoring bad behaviors. I'd rather tell the dog, no, do something else. No, stop doing that. Yeah. Basically stop. You can do anything else, just not that, basically. I'm not a huge believer in ignoring bad behaviors. So, but if you can, more power to you. I don't think that's the best route to take, and it's not going to be the quickest route by far.
No.
Yeah.
I don't think having razor teeth sunk into your arm is something you can ignore.
I agree. It's not fun. Yeah, no. I remember yesterday when I walked in that family's house, I was walking in and like it was jumping on me and stuff, and no problem. He doesn't know any better. But I was walking to like the living room area, like the couch where we're going to train the dog or whatnot. And he got me right on the back of the ankle. And I was like, whoa, that's good. That's nice. All right. Thank you. And it caught me so off guard because I was not expecting it. So I'm just walking, and I never wear shorts to train. I pretty much never wear shorts. I pretty much always wear pants, but I was like, I don't wear, shorts and tennis shoes or whatnot. And got me right on the back of the leg. So,
ow.
Yeah. Anyways, if you can ignore it, great, but not my suggestion. Okay. So let's jump into, I guess, some other methods. So number 4 would be, or the fourth way I guess you could do this is like just have a leash on your puppy, like whenever they're roaming the house and stuff, which is not a bad idea overall. Like if you've got like a bigger floor plan, or even if you don't have a huge floor plan or whatnot, just having a leash on your puppy where like you can get and redirect the dog's attention very easily, not a bad idea overall, right? So there's a handful of things we can do here. So one, just have a leash on. If the dog's like gnawing on this arm, I could just like pull the dog over here, redirect the dog to something else. That's one thing. Another one, and it just helps with overall control, right? So like it just helps me control the puppy overall. So that way I can I don't have to be grabbing onto the actual dog. I can grab the leash to move the dog, right?
Yes.
So for this, you'd need a leash, maybe like a slip lead or something like that. If you're going to use like a regular leash, you definitely need like a flat collar. I would suggest no harnesses for this because if I'm redirecting the dog, I want to be able to move the dog. And if I've got the dog on a collar, I can pull the dog's head, which controls the body. Yeah. If I'm making the dog wear a harness, then I have to move the whole dog, like the whole unit, to get the dog to stop. Yeah. So it's going to be suggested to use a flat collar for something like this, or like a slip lead or something. And once again, I'm not using any corrective collars or anything. I'm just using like a leash and like I guess you could call it a slip leash or correction collar, but it's not really. It's just I'm using it to redirect the dog.
Yeah.
That's overall for control. The other one you could do is like give the puppy like leash pops, like little pops on the leash, and so once again, you're going to want to like titrate this, or balance your correction to the puppy itself, right? Like, it's a puppy. I don't want to like rip its head off or anything, and really yank on the dog. Yeah. But I do want to be firm enough to tell the dog using the leash, hey, stop. That's not okay. I don't like that behavior. Please don't do that, right? So puppy bites. I've got some slack on the leash. Pop, snap, right? Now, this is not a pull. One thing that people mess up a lot about this, or mess up with this a lot, is like the pull, like they're kind of pull the dog, and it's not. If we're pulling the dog to control the dog and move the dog to something different, that's fine. If we're trying to correct the dog with the leash, it doesn't need to be a pull. It needs to be like a quick pop, like a quick little firm pop. You could call that like a flick of the wrist, and now how hard you flick your wrist is going to be dependent on the puppy. Yeah. I just want to do it hard enough to get the dog's attention, right?
Yes.
And once again, not ripping their head off or anything. I'm not using any correction collars. It's literally just a leash and a flat collar or a slip lead or something like that, right? But it's just enough to talk to the dog and say, hey, don't do this, right? Yeah. That would be like using a leash, plus pops plus control. Once again, having a leash on your puppy when they're wandering around the house overall is not a bad idea anyways, because if they start peeing, I could grab the leash, run them outside real quick, stop them mid pee, take them outside of the yard. So overall, it's not a bad principle to just like have your dog on a leash in the house, period, or puppy rather.
And we talked about the leash in the previous podcast as well, that if they have the leash on, then they get used to it for when you start going out walking. And so, you know.
Yeah. That was the last podcast we did. Yeah. We were talking about how to get your puppy used to the leash. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that is another thing too. Like if you want to walk your puppy, a lot of puppies don't want to walk on the leash. So like you can, you know, if they just drag a leash around, whenever you put a leash on them, it's not going to be a huge deal. And they're going to be like, yeah, what is this thing? Why is this human, you know, putting their paws out, like, why is this human, you know, walking me, pulling on me, right?
Yeah.
It's not going to be like that because they're already used to wearing a leash.
Yeah.
Anyways, so I'd say that'd be like how we would use the leash for like pops, control over the puppy overall, things like that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. The next one, and this worked really well. That worked really well for the family yesterday, and the family yesterday also. I'm just kind of categorizing this as like noisemaker, which we use as like a pattern interrupt. Now there's a bunch of different ways we can make a noise to pattern interrupt the puppy, but using a noisemaker of some sort or using loud noises as a way to interrupt the dog's behavior, right?
Yeah.
So, dog's biting me, a puppy nipping me, and then I make some sort of loud noise to get the dog's attention. You could throw the second one we talked about, like the yelp or say ouch. Once again, it just has to be loud enough to actually communicate with the puppy clearly.
Yeah.
I don't like you doing that. Please stop.
Yeah.
Excluding that one though, dog's biting me, I use a noisemaker, make a loud noise, things like that to get the dog to stop. So what are some noisemaker options? Number one, cheapest, fastest route is probably going to be like get a water bottle, like an empty water bottle, Gatorade bottle, whatever it is, and put some like rocks in it, some like pebbles or rocks in it. Now you're going to want, you know, more than a couple, you know, I don't have like an estimate on like how many rocks. I've made one for them yesterday. I probably put like 15 rocks in it or something like that, like the little like white garden rocks. But then puppy bites me with this hand, I shake it. It's going to startle the puppy a little bit. They're going to pair that startled feeling with the biting and me saying no. So I'm going to say no, shake. That's going to pair, the puppy's going to get a little startled. They're going to be like, yo, what was that? Why did this just happen? And then from there, I will then redirect them to something else, I'll start petting them again, things like that. And then if they bite me again, I'll repeat, right? And so the goal here is just snap the dog out of it and then get them to do what I want them to do, which is not bite me, right? Now, once again, I can redirect the dog, reward the dog, give the dog food, and use a food reward to tell the dog I can pet the dog, right? There's a bunch of different things.
Yeah.
That's one way. You could put pennies in a can. That's a pretty classic, like old school dog training method.
Yeah.
You could get some like pet corrector spray from like your local feed store or something like that. That's just like air in a can that makes a noise. Yeah. And so that would be how you'd use like a noise. If you don't have anything, like, you know, if you're at the wooden table, you know, like your dining room table, and the puppy's like, you know, your hand's down, you're petting your puppy and they're biting on you, you could smack the table, right? Once again, it's just something to pattern interrupt the puppy to snap them out of it and then redirect them to what we want them to do, or give them a reinforcer to say, hey, not biting me is the right thing. That's what I like, right?
Yeah.
That'd be how you would use a noisemaker. Now, I will say, like I said earlier, a lot of this stuff you can apply to just other puppy behaviors. So like puppies chewing the couch cushion, I walk in and like they grab the couch pillow or something like that. I could shake my noisemaker to tell the puppy, hey, don't do that, right? So I say no, shake, mark the behavior I don't want them to do. Then I move them over to something I do want them to do, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, hold on one second.
Okay. Well, let me ask you something. Would you not, you're saying you say no and then shake. Would you not shake and say no at the same time?
Yeah, that's kind of what I mean. That's kind of what I mean. Like you could preface it with a no and then follow the no with the negative. So that way or you could do it at the same time.
Okay.
I mean, if you're shaking the can though, like, I mean, the rock bottle's like kind of loud. So like unless I'm like speaking at a higher voice, then, you know, the puppy's probably not going to hear. So I'd go like no and then shake, or do it at the same time. I mean, it's within like, there's not a huge gap. There's not really a huge gap there.
I'm just trying to clarify for our listeners, because it's like a split second, isn't it? It's not like you go, no, shake.
Yeah.
It's got to be like.
And that little shake you just did with your hand with nothing in it would not work. That's not a shake. When I'm saying shake, I mean like snap.
Like a.
Yeah.
Okay.
And like make a loud noise.
Okay.
Yeah. I wouldn't maybe necessarily start there, but I definitely don't want to just like, you know, do that. But I might also not go like full shake. I might do somewhere in the middle, you know, to start. But
it's very technical.
Yeah. Anyways, but you could also use this this same thing for catching your puppy doing other stuff. So like jumping on guests, jumping on you, eating, stuff. You catch him potty in the house, snap him out of it, walk him outside, right? You can use it for all the other puppy behaviors and stuff. The only downside to this is like the more you use it, the more that the dog will get desensitized to it and like probably like not care about it. So like we're going to have to find some other ways to communicate with the dog. Yeah,
Gotcha. Change the noise.
Yeah. One cool thing about those two is like, let's say the dog's like across the room or whatnot doing something, like you can shake it, but you could also like toss it kind of near the dog, right? And that'll also do it too.
So throw it towards the dog?
Yeah, not at the dog.
Not at the dog.
Yeah, not at the dog. Not at the dog. Anyway, so that's another one too that you can do, the noisemaker thing. Mm-hmm. Next one is using your hands. So like you don't have a leash, you don't have a noisemaker, you don't have anything like that. There's a handful of different ways we can use our hands to get the dog to stop like puppy nipping on us. What I don't suggest like popping the puppy, hitting the puppy, anything like that. Nothing like that. When I say using like your hand, what I mean is like holding their mouth closed for a second. So like, they bite me, I take their mouth off me and hold their mouth closed for a second, and I'll look at them and maybe give them like a stern no, stop, leave it, don't do that. Whatever the command I want to use, right? That's just enough for them to be like, oh, okay, I don't like that. Let me move on to something else, right? That's the idea. And then once they stop, then once again, I reward the positive, right?
Yeah.
Or give them something else to do. Another one you could do too is like kind of like put like hold down, like put your thumb on their tongue, so to speak, and kind of hold their mouth for a second like that. Same thing. Look at them. No, bad, stop, don't do that. Whatever the command is, just enough for it to be annoying. I don't really, press super hard, just enough for it to be annoying where they're like, I don't like that. I don't want to do that. And then I'll move them on to something else, right?
Yeah.
Those would be like two kind of primary ways I'd use my hands. Like there's a couple other different ways, different things that we could do, but those would probably be like the easiest for like the untrained person to like actually apply. Like listen to this and then go to like application right away. But that would be like hand stuff. I will say after you do that a handful of times, your puppy's probably not going to let you grab them. So they're going to be like, like they'll, if they do bite you, it's going to be like, come in quick, boom, run away.
Because they're wise to this.
Exactly. Yeah. So like we have to like start being strategic and anyways, that's a way to use like hand stuff.
Okay. So let me ask you. So you say not to pop them. So no spanking bottoms, popping them on the nose or anything like that. Why? I
think there's better ways to like talk to the dog without hitting them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think there's better ways to talk to the dog without hitting them.
Because we don't actually want to change behaviors through fear, do we? So I suppose if you spanking or bopping them and things, then that is a real.
Most people I don't think would actually like hit their dog hard enough to like scare them anyways. Like most of our clients wouldn't actually hit their dog hard enough to scare them anyways. I'm just saying overall, I just think there's a better way to talk to dogs without like putting your hands on them and hitting them and stuff like that. Yeah. When I say putting your hands on them, I mean like hitting them or popping them or whatnot.
Yeah, and that's...
That's kind of because like I mean, this is technically using your hands, like I said, closing their mouth, putting your thumb on their tongue, things like that. But I'm, like I said, just trying to be aversive enough to where they're like, hey, I don't like that. Let me try something different, right? That's it. That's all I'm getting at.
Well, I was just thinking from like, if you've been bitten and you're getting very frustrated.
It might be a very natural reaction to like just want to like
it could be
pop the dog.
Yeah, but we're saying that's not going to be productive in the long term.
Yeah. I mean, I'll say it's not the most ideal way. I mean, if you get frustrated and pop your dog hard enough one time, they might never bite you again, Now I'm not, once again, though, I'm not endorsing that or like suggesting that per se, but to say it's not productive, I guess, I don't know if that's necessarily the way I'd describe it. But at the same time, once again, I just think there's other better ways to communicate with the dog rather than hitting the dog. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just don't want to pop them or hit them or anything like that. I'd rather talk to him through a different method, right?
Yeah.
But okay, next one is like use a spray bottle. So like, just use a spray bottle. So like a water bottle, it could be, I'd probably go with one that more like shoots a stream rather than like a mist per se, but like, get an old like, go to your local like grocery store or whatnot and get like a cleaner bottle, not a cleaner bottle, but like an empty bottle that sprays. And like I said, that kind of sprays like a stream. Now, upside, if it works and your puppy doesn't like the water, it works really great and it's effective and it's pretty low cost a lot of times once the dog gets used to it, you can just show it to them and they're like, okay, I'm not going to bite you. Right. Downside, your puppy might like the water. Right. So like your puppy might like the water and like yeah, exactly. Your puppy might like the water and start like actually like it and enjoy it and stuff like that, which is kind of funny. But that works really well and is like a really effective means of like telling the dog, no, stop if they don't like it. Because once again, a correction is just anything that the dog doesn't like, So, and once again, if like you saying no is effective enough, then like that's a perfect correction, right? Like we don't need to do anything else other than just say the word no if it's effective and like means something to the dog, right?
Yeah.
Anyways, but the water bottle works really well.
So you don't have to go out and buy one of those Nerf super soakers then?
I've never had anybody do that, but I'm sure if they did, that probably would work. But I've never had anybody do that before. That is pretty funny. I've never even thought about that.
Can you imagine your dog's biting you?
Yeah, I need to put that on my suggestions list. Just go buy a water gun, the best water gun you possibly can. Yeah, it'd probably be more better for like training the cats, like not to get on the counter or something like that, because a lot of spraying them and stuff. Anyway, so that's water bottle. And then the last one that I have that is like really effective and I don't think enough people utilize, maybe because they feel bad or whatever it is, but just like put the puppy up or put the puppy out, like for timeout. So like you can put the dog in the crate when the dog's doing bad stuff and it not be a timeout and not be negative. We can frame the crate as a place that you go to settle down, right? So like just because the puppy's being bad, if I put the puppy in there, maybe if I like yell at him and like, get in your kennel and like yell at him a lot and stuff, that might make it a negative. But if I just like unemotionally put the dog in the crate when they're being too much, it's just me telling the dog, hey, you're going to go in here for a little bit. Once you settle down, I'll let you back out, right? That doesn't have to be a negative because a lot of people will tell me like, oh, I don't want to put the dog in a crate because I don't want it to see it as a form of negative. Well, I agree with that, and you shouldn't be using the crate as a negative. However, you can put the dog in there to settle the dog down, right? Like especially if it's like being too much for the family, right? Like if you've got like kids and stuff, and the dog's being too much, and it's like family time, it's after school, dinner, homework, putting the kids in the bath, all that stuff. Yeah, you might need to just put the puppy up for a little bit, and that's not a negative. It's just saying, hey, you got to go up for a little bit, settle down, take a little nap. We'll get you out later, right? Yeah. That's it. Super simple. Another one too is if you're, fortunate enough to have a backyard, put the puppy in the backyard for a little bit. Like, put the puppy in the backyard for a little bit. Like that, people, the client I've been referencing or whatnot, I, at the evaluation, I did some of the methods that we talked about here and the dog stopped biting me. But then whenever to like go bite them or whatnot, and so it was being too distracting. Like, and so I was like, hey, let's just put him outside for a little bit. So we put him outside, and like he went and explored the backyard and had a great time. And then the humans were able to focus, right? So, all that being said, like, you can use like putting the dog up or putting the dog out for a little bit. When I say put him up, I mean in the crate. When I say put him out, I mean I'm in the yard. Yeah. But like, you can use that as an effective means to like give yourself a break, give yourself some space, especially if you find yourself getting frustrated. Because once again, like you definitely don't want to get so frustrated to the point where like you're willing to like, pop the dog to say, hey, stop, like let's pause before we get too frustrated and like do something more productive, right? And if like, and if you're, I always tell people like if you're frustrated, the dog's going to feel that and they're going to be frustrated too. So let's try to like, train not frustrated, right? So, put the dog up, put the dog outside. If your family's getting frustrated, put the dog up, put the dog outside. Yeah. Those would be like my last two like big ones though, that I have on that. So it should be like 8 different ways that people could start like doing stuff like right now if they have a puppy that's biting them and mauling them and they're, not doing it because they're mean, they're just doing it like out of love, but they don't know where to redirect that energy. That's a bunch of stuff that you can do right now. One more like big overall tip I want to give. I don't know if you'd put this in like the 8 ways, I guess I'd make it 9, or in the principles section, but just overall, just like have a bunch of stuff for your dog to like play with, like, and like redirect their energy to and stuff, right? Because like if I've gone to people's houses before, and this is not the rule, this is very much the exception, but like people will have a puppy and they don't have any like toys for the dog. It's like, well, or bones, and it's like, well, puppies need to have something in their mouth, so it's like it's either going to be our couch or it's going to be our hands, right? Like you got to give them something, so have toys, have bones, have a Kong, that you can put some like peanut butter and stuff like that, right? Have some stuff that the puppy is allowed to chew on and stuff. So that way, whenever we do use any of these corrective measures or ways to communicate with them, then we can redirect the puppy to what we do want them doing, right? But you can't do that if you don't have stuff. And I'm sure a lot of the people listening are like, probably like me talking about on my interview, the interview we did a couple podcasts ago, like, have a toy box and stuff. So like, but have stuff for your dog to chew on, right? Give your dog, bully sticks, bones. If you, and once again, if like you do need some space for a minute, save something special that's like going to be long lasting for them. Like if you, I don't know, doing a work call and you're on Zoom or something, and your puppy's like frustrating you or annoying you or something, like grab a bully stick, like have bully sticks and just give them to him like at special times. Don't just leave them out, but give them to him at like special times. Absolutely. Have a Kong, have 2 Kongs, have one always in the freezer, ready to roll. That's like got frozen peanut butter in it that you can give to him, right? Plenty of toys, things like that. Anyways, rant over.
That was so good. Now, let me ask you this then, because another thought popped into my head. There's old wives' tales about biting dogs back. Have you heard any of those?
Yeah.
Like roll their bottom lip or something and bite them there, or bite them on the ear and stuff. What do you think?
I do think rolling the lip like under the teeth and like kind of pinching it into their teeth a little bit is an effective method. I would normally put that under hand stuff, but it kind of sometimes requires like a demonstration, so I didn't put it in here. But I do that with puppies a lot too, like rolling the kind of the lip under their teeth a little bit and kind of pinching it just a little bit and telling them no whenever I'm doing it. That's a very effective method because they learn as soon as they bite, they feel discomfort. They're like, oh, I don't like that. And then they move on to something else, right? That's very effective. In terms of biting your puppy on the ear, that makes me think of Snow Dogs with Cuba Gooding Jr., which is one of my favorite movies as a kid. I mean, I love that movie. And he, I think Demon is the lead dog or whatnot, and like it just absolutely ruined his life. And he finally bites the dog on the ear, and the dog like submits to him and is like, cool with him and stuff. In terms of biting him on the ear, I mean, I'm gonna go with a no on that one. Like, probably shouldn't do that. Yeah, I mean, probably shouldn't do that.
No, I've never thought once of biting my dog's back.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty funny. But no, I haven't.
No.
Yeah.
But I just know they're out there.
That is a wives' tale for sure. Bite them on the ear.
Just bite it back.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I do know that like the ears are like very sensitive. Like I know like old school, like I don't know if this is how people still train dogs to like do force fetch or whatnot, but like, so I'm saying old school because it's like the ways that I know that trainers used to do it. But like, trainers that are training labs like force fetch will like pinch the ear or like have like a little like cap on the end of their finger that kind of like puts a little pressure on the ears so the dog like kind of, squawks and opens their mouth. And as soon as it does, they shove the toy in there and then they release the pressure. So the dog learns like, hey, by holding on to this thing, the pressure goes away. Right. So, I was saying all that to say, I know the ears are sensitive, but I don't think I'd suggest biting them the same way I would suggest not hitting your dog either.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But yeah, no, that's definitely that is definitely out there. That we had a whole thing where I didn't even think about this. We were talking about like dog myths. We were going to do an episode on like dog myths and like debunking dog myths and stuff. Like they have the cleanest mouths or what the different stuff that we grew up hearing or whatnot. Yeah. We should add wives' tales to the list too, though, like dog wives' tales and stuff that are wives' tales related to dogs. And see. And get my thoughts on those because like I hadn't done a ton of research on those, but I have definitely heard those before, so that's fine. Cool. Anything on any of that? Puppy nipping, puppy biting, getting it to stop, principles, etc.
That was really informative.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, if you guys are listening and you have a puppy, you have a friend that has a puppy, family member that has a puppy, colleague that has a puppy, and their puppy's biting them and they're complaining, send it to them. Please send this to them. My goal here was like, I wanted to say too, I guess, with this list, this is not everything. Like there's clearly other stuff that we can do with the puppy to train the dog. This is just some stuff that's super effective and that you can start doing right now. And some of the more common ones that you'll find on the internet. There is other methods that you can use. There's other things you can do that would, I guess you could say, like complete the list, so to speak. There's a million different ways to train a dog. Yeah. There's a million different ways to get the end result that you want. These are just 8 big ways that you can start right now and do it right now. And some of the more common ones and, how to actually apply the more common ones more effectively and use them the most effective manner, I should say. Yeah. So with that being said, if you've got a puppy, you've got a friend with a puppy, you, once again, colleague, et cetera, whoever it is, and they're struggling with this, please send this to them. That would be really helpful. My goal was to after I met that family, I was like, man, I got to tell people how to fix this, because it's it's not that hard. It's just, you got to do it, be consistent with it. And if you do, it works, So my goal is to take all the stuff I taught them yesterday, put it in one, condensed format, so to speak, and give it to the world. Yeah.
And if you think about it, you get your puppy around like the 8 weeks. Mm-hmm. We don't start training until at least 10 weeks.
Yeah.
So it's like
more often 12.
Yeah. But it's like, what do people do when they get that puppy home?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
You're going at it.
Yeah.
without any information, unless you've done some really good research.
Yeah.
Most people don't.
Yeah.
Most people just go, I've got a puppy. And then it's like, what do we do?
Yeah. Yeah. No, that definitely happens.
Give them the podcast.
This for sure.
Helpful.
Yeah. Well, anyways, I guess all that being said, if you like the show, please share the show. I've already asked you all to do that, but please share the show with a friend, family member, colleague. We've got a ton of good episodes already out on various dog problems, topics, etc. So yeah, please share that. That's big. Yeah. Next one. I know people ask you every time you watch a YouTube video, or a podcast or whatever, please subscribe. I'm asking you to do the same thing. If you don't mind, if you like the show, you got any value out of the show, please subscribe to the show, follow, subscribe. Yeah. The actual liking, it's pretty important too, just because it does boost everything up in the algorithm and stuff. So if you could, that'd be amazing. We'd really, really appreciate that. Yeah, that's pretty much it. That's all I got. I was going to say, I guess last thing, if you need help with anything training wise, you can go to wonderdogtraining.com. We've got in-person and online options at wonderdogtraining.com. You can check it all out there. But yeah, thank y'all so much for listening. We're really enjoying doing this for you guys and having a lot of fun with this and taking time out of the week to record these episodes and put them out for you and stuff. So anyways, thank you guys so much for listening, and we will see y'all on the next episode.
Bye.
Bye.